Hello and very warm welcome everyone to season 16 of Lessons in Marketing Excellence, presented by Hindustan Unilever Limited and CNBC TV18. I am Nikita George, Employer Brand Manager and Unilever Future Leaders Program Manager at HUL. And today, I'm absolutely delighted to be with all of you as we embark on season 16 of L.I.M.E, India's biggest B-School case competition. Over the years, the legacy of L.I.M.E endures as a platform that meticulously selects the nation's most promising future marketeers via rigorous real-world marketing trials. In this annual event, we see students from India's most prestigious B schools participate as they work towards the ambitious dream of being crowned the winners of Lessons in Marketing Excellence. We are excited this year to be back with yet another fascinating marketing challenge that is critical for our business to thrive in the next decade. As we proudly enter our 16th edition, we reflect upon a decade and a half of remarkable journeys, incredible stories, and exceptional talent. And over this span of some of the brightest minds in the country have illuminated the L.I.M.E finale stage with their dedication, marketing prowess, and unwavering determination. We hope for this season to be bigger, better, and brighter. On that note, without any further ado, let's kick off this season with our first speaker for the evening, a seasoned professional with an impressive career record of over 25 years at HUL across customer development and marketing. He has had a diverse spectrum of experiences across categories. It is fabulous to have what we call sales and marketing royalty join us today to take you through some of his experiences with L.I.M.E and also unveil the case for today. Mr. Srinandan Sundaram, Executive Director, Home Care for Hindustan Unilever Limited, will be making the opening address as he reveals the theme for this year. Over to you, Tan, as we take this forward.
Welcome to season 16 of L.I.M.E. I'm sure each of you are keenly awaiting what's in store for you in the season 16 of L.I.M.E. Well, this year we're going to try something different and you're going to get a case around Gen Z. Why Gen Z? Because their attitude, behavior, and approach to how they shop is very different. Some interesting facts for you to think about, or you really do this, but it's interesting to know that about yourselves. 1 in 2 people prefer do-it-yourself, and DIY is a really cool thing amongst all of you. The second, versus millennials, there's about 1 in 2 of you who love shopping online. So where you shop, how you shop, who you listen to is distinctly very different. And the same is a challenge as brands appeal to audience like yours and really try to win amongst Gen Z. So what's the case about? Task 1, you've got to choose an HUL brand that really appeals to you. Task 2, on that brand, design how your creative expression will be so that it appeals to Gen Z. And last but not the least, tell us your communication strategy that ensures you reach the widest addressable audience amongst Gen Z. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun doing this case and looking forward to how you help us shape marketing differently as HUL tries to be a pioneer to win amongst Gen Z.
Thanks, Stan, for setting up the stage to this exciting season. And as you mentioned, we are all eagerly awaiting for the entries to come in. I'm sure it's going to be super innovative. And I think since the case itself is about Gen Z, and since Gen Z is going to really put their minds together to come up with some solutions, it's going to be fantastic as a ride forward. Now that you've heard what the theme for this year is, I'm sure you're also keen to know what's at stake as you start crafting your solutions. To delve a bit on what season 16 has to offer for all you young minds, I'm now going to invite Aditya Kashyap, our head for fabric cleaning at HUL, to come and shed some light on why should you really participate in L.I.M.E and what's awaiting you. Over to you, Addy.
You just heard from our Executive Director, Srinandan Sundaram. Welcome to Lessons in Marketing Excellence Season 16. Yes, you heard that right. Season 16 of India's biggest and largest marketing case study competition for B School students. This year's season is our biggest and our best ever. And a few pointers before we start. L.I.M.E is open to first year students across business schools. There are a great host of awards and prizes in store. Every semi-finalist gets a direct interview shortlist to do their summer internship with HUL, and potentially after the internship join us full time. The winning team gets a cash award of 10 lakh rupees. The first runner-ups 3 lakh and the second runner-up 2 lakh. The winning team also represents India at Unilever's Future Leaders League that's conducted anywhere across the world. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you during the competition, looking forward to all your entries and looking forward to you doing a great job in L.I.M.E Season 16. And that's not all. We, as the team Hindustan Unilever, are here to support you in every step of the way. We are here to explain the case to you. We are here to coach you. We are here to guide you to make your entries far sharper, and really looking forward to meeting you and working with you. Over to that.
Well, you heard that right. There are a bunch of exciting, amazing prizes and experiences in store for all of you through this journey. Thanks, Aditya, for taking us through them. But who better than our winners of season 15 to give you a behind the scenes view of how to make the most of this opportunity? These are people who have walked the path of L.I.M.E and seen its glory in its full, and they are going to be here on screen with me in just about a minute as they talk to you about how to make an impactful pitch, how to structure presentations, and what to expect from our eminent jury. Well, here's a sneak peek from the winners of season 15 Lessons in Marketing Excellence, Protiti Sengupta, Neha Doshi, and Snehashish Bandopadhyay. Our winners, please join me on screen right now. All right, it's fantastic to have all of you here with me. I'm going to quickly actually ask each of you to introduce yourselves and share with us what you're currently doing. We know that the winning team from last year was from IIM Calcutta. So I'm going to pass it on to each one of you to just quickly take us through your journey. I'm going to start with Neha. Neha, can we have you, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Nikita, for the warm welcome. Like you mentioned, I am Neha Doshi. I am a final year student at IIM Calcutta currently. As we speak, me and the other two people who joined me today, my teammates, have just returned from an amazing internship experience at HUL and then also UFLL, which Aditya mentioned about. And now we are back to the academic hustle. I'm sure the students on the call would relate to it, the assignments and the exams. Looking forward today to sharing my 2 cents on the amazing learning experience that L.I.M.E has been.
Thanks, Neha. I'm going to quickly move on to Protiti. Protiti, if you can share what you're currently doing and how exciting this journey was for you.
Thank you so much, Nikita. So I am a classmate of Neha's as well, and I'm currently a second year student at IIM Calcutta. And we had an amazing summer internship experience at HUL this year. And currently, yes, I am also the different lectures, assignments, and exams. And that is about me. And I look forward to sharing more about my experience in L.I.M.E. Thank you.
Right. So all of our participants from L.I.M.E last year are now second year students, and they're like sneaking out some time from their busy schedule in campus, but without much stress of, the internship going by. So I'm going to now ask Snehashish to come and talk about his experience and what he's up to right now.
Hi Nikita, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I just like Neha and Protiti, I'm a second year student at IIM Calcutta. Uh, Before that, in first year, we had the opportunity to participate in L.I.M.E. The experience in itself was really enriching. And based on that, we also got to intern at HUL, meet the brand managers, got to know more about the brands in depth, how you keep consumer at your center when you're planning about anything. And that has also changed or broadened my perspectives when I come to second year and I am taking new courses and participating in my assignments or other group projects. So through the call in the next few minutes, obviously we would be discussing more online. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nehashish. So now that you know our winners for season 15, let's really pick their brains on how to crack this exciting journey of Lime. And I'm going to start with Protiti. So Protiti, when you had decided to sort of participate in Lime, I'm sure now it seems very fruitful when you look back at it. But as first year students, when you were still exploring your options at campus, and there are a ton of case competitions that come your way, what made you choose Lime, and why did you decide that it would be worth your time to actually take part in this case competition?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nikita, for that question. So I think the very first thing that motivated me to consider Lime is the fact that I had clarity about my inclination towards sales and marketing as a domain. And I knew that as a marketing enthusiast, participating in Lime is almost a no-brainer. And it is the massive scale of this event and the rich competition that you receive from so many different B schools. And of course, even the kind of cases that you get, right? These are brands which we have all grown up with. So that itself was something really fascinating for me. There was also this opportunity to gain more visibility. There were networking opportunities both nationally and in our case, fortunately, even globally, where we were able to participate in the UFLL competition. And here we actually got to meet so many different countries' teams and got to expand our network even further. Apart from that, within the line perspective, we had the access to a really eminent jury, and we got so many eminent members there who were providing their valuable feedback and insights on whatever proposition that we had gone up with. Another important thing for Lime would be obviously the scope of early opportunities with HUL. And we, all three of us, interned at HUL during our summers. And that had always been such a dream. And last but not the least, I would say, is the fact that we got to be featured on CNBC TV18. And all of you, if you have not already watched it, you can actually access it on YouTube. And I think it was a little, I think, almost like a celebrity moment that we got to get featured on YouTube and on a national TV channel nonetheless. So I think all of these different reasons really contributed to my interest and motivation towards participating in Line. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Pratiti. That's very well said. And of course, the scale and size of Lime is unmatched even today. The reach that it has with students across, we have about 350 schools participating annually in Lime with more than 20,000 applications coming in. And we hope to see as many this year as well, because it is really a rich ground for everybody to show their marketing prowess and be spotted very early in their career and get nurtured along the way. So we really look forward to talent and, like I said, exceptional talent coming through this channel. And we're only delighted to keep adding on to that. I'm going to move to my next question to Neha. Neha, what has been your experience after going through the Lime process? Has that changed you as a person in any way? And how do you think it has shaped your career?
Sure. Thank you so much for the question, Nikita. I think the entire Lime experience has been fruitful in more than one way. I just want to break it down into a few most prominent ways that it has helped me. The first one is the personal growth that I can truly see myself. The confidence boost that the post Lime experience has given me and has inculcated into me is my number one benefit that I gained out of the Lime experience. When you present in front of such an esteemed jury, you hear their views on your thought process, your presentation way, your communication style, and also the entire approach to the case. Any words of appreciation, criticism, anything that came along the way just helped me boost my confidence onto a level that I had not unlocked earlier. And I'm very sure that the way that it garnered my thought process will be fruitful to me in my professional journey as well that lies ahead of me. The next one would definitely be the mentorship that I could receive as a part of this competition. In the further rounds of Lime, you connected us with mentors from HUL who had diverse experiences, who helped us make our case more fine, make our solution refined to an extent that we can present it on such a big stage. And those are connections and networks unlocked for life. They also helped me during my internship at HUL as well. So the connections that I made, the mentorship that I received from HUL remains my second most highlighted point that I still, cherish. And lastly, obviously, it was about the security of the internship that L.I.M.E gave to me. As an MBA student, I walked into my MBA journey to make marketing my career, and then participating in L.I.M.E and finding out that I'm going to intern at the marketing mecca was just an experience that I can't put into words. That feeling, that security, the feeling of accomplishment, it just felt like things fell into place. So yeah, these are the things that I cherish the most, and I'm sure will help me ahead in my professional life as well.
Thanks, Neha. And I think very well put together in the sense that, there are certain things that all students look forward to. And whether or not you win L.I.M.E, I think just the experience of going through the entire process completely changes your worldview towards how marketers think. And it's almost like a sneak peek into the world of marketing at HUL, because you will get mentored by some of our senior category leaders who have made the most iconic brands stand out in the country. So brands that you and generations have loved together are ones that you will get to learn from behind the scenes, and that I think is a experience in itself, whether or not you make it to the finals. But of course, for those of you who do crack that semi-finals, there is also the opportunity to live that dream a little longer and come in and work with us as a summer intern. And of course, all of these little experiences that you go through will add up in hindsight when you plan to have a full-fledged marketing career. So thanks, Neha, for putting that across so well. I'm going to go to Snehashish next. Snehashish, there are a bunch of marketing case competitions, business case competitions that students participated right in the first semester of MBA. But what sets L.I.M.E apart from a case competition lens? Is the problem statement slightly different from everyone else? What's your point of view on that?
So having participated in multiple case comps back in my first year, what I can say about L.I.M.E is the way L.I.M.E is different is that when we look at the case problems, for example, I'll take up the case that we had for our finals, that is ONDC and Shikhar. Now, these are real problems that exist in India, and we are trying to come up with a solution, trying to propose a well-defined end-to-end solution that can be utilized by because the jury members who were there, the jury members are also eminent board members of these prestigious organizations. The CEO of CEO of ONDC was also there, and our idea was really liked by him. So when I look at it, the problem statement is very realistic, is very applicable to the real world. And apart from that, when we come to the mentoring, we got to connect with senior marketeers, the senior brand managers at HUL, and the insights that they gave us while we were preparing our solution. Each and every insight was really crucial for us. It helped us make our slides better, make our proposal better, and eventually we learned a lot from it. And that learning stays with us forever.
Thanks, Nehashish. And I think what you said in the end was absolutely apt, that each instance is only another opportunity to learn and see in close quarters how brands are built in the country, and especially about the themes that we usually put up for our finale are themes of national significance. It's been our endeavor as HUL and CNBC to ensure that the best marketing minds in our top B schools are working on a theme that is critical to the nation as well as beneficial to all consumers. So that's what really sets L.I.M.E apart. And if you are up to making a mark, I'm sure this is the place for you to be. Now, I'm sure if you're on this call, you've figured out that probably this is a case competition you want to be a part of. But then comes the next question of how do I ace this? How do I make a winning team? How do I ensure that I get my presentation right? How do I prep for, facing eminent jury members and actually doing the Q&A with them? And that's where I think 3 pro tips from our 3 winners are going to be of much use. So I'm going to actually go in reverse now. Let me start with Snehashish. If you have one tip for our, aspirants, what would it be?
So my tip would be very simple. That is also the mantra of HUL, to keep the consumer at the center. When you're designing your case, take into consideration how the consumer would be thinking and focus a lot on primary research. The more you talk to consumers, the more insights you gather, the more you will be able to cater to the problem in a better way. So that will be my simple suggestion to all the participants this year.
Thank you. Thanks, Snehashish. I'm going to go to Neha next. So Neha, what is your pro tip?
Sure. So while Snehashish covered the consumer bit and the thought process, one quick tip from my end would be that visualize as much as you can. The lesser amount of text and the more that you can visualize for the jury is, I think, our team's go-to quick tip. Be it a poster, be it a product mock-up, be it a marketing campaign, an outdoor advertisement, or a wireframe. It could be anything related to your solution. If you can just visualize it, and now we have a lot of tools at our disposal. So we just need to upskill ourselves a little to be able to use those tools better and help the jury just cognitively just see what you're trying to say instead of just wording it out for them on the slide. So that is my one quick tip, that just visualize and present that over the text that is there in your presentation.
Thanks, Neha. You've spoken like a real marketer where, visual cues are most important. So thanks for that one. I'm going to ask Protiti now if there's one quick tip to share. What would it be?
Sure. Thank you so much, Nikita. So while Snehashish has covered the consumer centricity part of it, and Neha has covered the creative visualization part of it, my tip would be just to keep things simple. And by that, what I mean is, although there will be a lot of research and a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes of actually coming up with a proposition, when you're actually presenting it, it needs to be very sharply defined. It needs to be very neat. It should not be too cluttered with like a lot of ideas, but instead try to have a common theme flowing across the slides and try to keep it as simple and as sharply defined as possible. So that would be my tip for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Prutiti. And I think that sort of gets you to a good place in terms of where to get started. Consumer centricity is the base for every single approach when it comes to a brand building exercise. So, of course, that is their creative visualization. And the last one, I think we take for granted quite often. But I think keeping things simple is very difficult to do because we all get sort of very carried away with sort of visualizing it in a very fancy manner, but communicating in a complicated manner. So you need to be sure of what your sort of moot point is and put that across really simply. I think very good tips shared by our previous winners. But if you want to know more about how to approach the case, how to deal with questions, we are going to put up some content from our winners from last year on our social media handles. So if you're not, you're not following us yet, Unilever Diaries on Instagram and Unilever on LinkedIn is where you will get to hear a lot more from them on their experience and how to approach a case competition like this. And of course, see some of their amazing pictures from their trip to London when they went as L.I.M.E winners to the Unilever Future Leaders League competition, which is the global competition that you get to go once you win L.I.M.E. On that note, I want to thank Neha, Prutiti, and Snehashish for joining us. And now quickly getting into the case details, right? Now that you know the theme, which is building for the next gen, and you've heard our speakers talk about how to approach the case a little bit and what to be careful about, I'm sure all of you are raring to go and take a shot at the case. But before you dive in, like we promised and like Addy mentioned, we wanted to help you start off with a few ideas to sharpen your approach. To help you think through the various facets of the case, we have with us Varun Sethia, founder and CEO of Craftshala. Just want to let you know that there is also a Q&A tab on your screen which you could use to post any questions you have, and we'll be taking all of it after Varun's segment ends. And we have, of course, Addy and Varun to give you all the direction that you need to get started. On that note, I'm going to hand it over to Varun to take us through the approach to the case and help you brainstorm some of the ideas that may be popping up in your head right now. Over to you, Varun. Thanks.
Uh, Thank you very much, Nikita. I hope, guys, my audio is absolutely super. I'm very excited to be chatting up with you, and with a little bit of help, I think my deck is going to come up in just a second. To give you a little bit of a quick introduction, I lead a company called Craftshala, which I started back in 2017. So, like many of you, I had a fairly sort of a conventional career. So did engineering, then did an MBA, then went to work for Nestle, worked largely on Kit Kat and Maggie, and then started doing projects which were a little bit, a little bit of a different kind. Started a company. Started doing a few learning sessions in marketing at some of the campuses, and eventually started Craftshala in 2017. Some of your super seniors would have taken up our first programs. Of course, now we don't run a program on peaceful campuses. And over the last couple of years, we've become the largest institution in terms of marketing placements. We've been working with Unilever on L.I.M.E now for about 8 years. So this has really been a partnership that we've seen sort of evolve over the years. So basically, the first year that Craftshala started, we were working with Unilever on L.I.M E, and that has sort of continued. And over these 8 years, I've asked this question to many students in terms of what they think is the biggest obstacle for them in terms of them cracking L.I.M E. And people say many things, right? Especially first year students, they'll talk about the fact that they don't have a lot of education in terms of competing with seniors and so on and so forth. A lot of courses have not been done. You've just entered into B school and so on and so forth. But in reality, those are quite solvable. And in fact, through the course of this discussion, I'm going to solve a lot of those knowledge pieces for you. But the biggest issue is not really on the knowledge side as much as it is on the time side, because to crack a case of this kind, you really have to try and attempt to be as close to an expert as you can be in this category. And it's hard to acquire expertise in a short period of time, and especially with the B school calendars being so crunched, that is what really gets into the way for people. And so the perspective with which I've sort of designed this deck, and in fact I've done it with my partner Ishu, the perspective with which we've done this is to make sure that you spend your time on the things which matter most, and that you have a framework through which you can attack the problem at hand, right? So that's really the attempt. This is not a hack, because you'll still have to put in a fair amount of work, but I think that is reasonable to ask, considering all the benefits that you get in doing well in L.I.M E, right? So my job is to make sure that the time that you spend into this amazing opportunity is actually really giving you maximum bang for the buck. And all our hope, HUL as well as ours, is that at the end of this exercise, hopefully you will progress to the next round. But at the bare minimum, everybody who participates will really know marketing a lot more than what they did before they started. So let's begin. Now, this case, as you guys already know, because the case has been out to some extent, is that it's really about helping HUL tap into the Gen Zs, right? So for anybody who wants to get a little bit of background, over the years, we found it useful to split a bucket of people into generations, because with those generations there are accompanying technological changes, socio-political changes that have led to certain changes in their brand preferences, right? So therefore, it is easier. I mean, as marketers, we know that each consumer matters. But if you want to understand, hundreds of millions and billions of people, then it helps to bucket them into some categories, right? So one of the more useful categories has been looking at it at a generational level, and this case is really about, really about focusing on those Gen Zs, the folks like yourselves who've been born after 1997, and who have a certain specific kind of preferences, right? So this time, L.I.M.E is inviting you to build for the Gen Zs, to help to help HUL brands really appeal to Gen Zs in a way that hasn't been done in the past, right? That's the ask that we're going to be making in from you now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of pieces that you could consider, and I'm going to be categorical in stating that these are just examples of the kinds of consumer trends that you could tap into. They are not exhaustive. They're not meant to be exhaustive. Since you're part of this generation, you should be, I would say most of you are part of this generation, you should be able to tap into a lot more knowledge that is given in the case, right? But just to set you off on a path of discovery, I thought I'll put in a couple of pieces for you to consider, right? So one of the things which is absolutely true about Gen Zs is the fact that is the fact that fandom is something which has become a much larger deal than what it was maybe 10 years ago, or definitely 20 years ago, right? So that number of 9 out of 10 is an amazing number to see, right? And here I'm counting, not just the cricket fans, but Swifties and BTS and all kinds of gaming communities which are there, all kinds of obviously sporting competitions for sure, but people really have used these mechanisms to sort of communities and identify themselves as part of these communities, right? So I think that is one big piece which is there, and obviously perception matters a fair bit, and perception today is largely in the online world rather than the offline world, right? I mean, people, and a lot of you might not realize this, but as you grow older, you tend to care less about what other people think, right? That's why people who are in their 70s sometimes will do things that make them look completely weird to somebody who's 20 years old, right? But people in this age band typically tend to be very conscious, and because there's conscious, and because most of our expressions are now happening online, because all of the reach is online, therefore this online presence has become pretty important, right? And it's an extraordinary figure that there are 44 million blue ticks that have already been sold, right, to people in that age group of 18 to 34. So it's an extraordinary number and something to keep in mind. Of course, online doesn't just extend to the social presence. It's also about their shopping behavior. So this, you can imagine how much this is true. They're digital natives, that is there, right? And they care enormously for causes, right? So the for this audience, there are different causes that excite them, that they feel are worth their time, their effort, their attention to be invested in. And these causes can vary, right? So it can be on any scale or spectrum, but there's no doubt that a lot of successful cases you can find today of brands associating themselves with these causes as ways to engage with their consumers, right? And in fact, we've shared a training deck with you that I hope that you'll be able to access soon if you've not already accessed. And in that, we've put in a couple of examples from Unilever's portfolio, one from India, one from outside, of brands using causes to really sort of connect with their audiences. But I don't want to reduce this year's L.I.M.E just two causes. And in fact, this is a very important thing for you guys to note, that Gen Z is not just about, it's not just about those serious socio-political kind of causes. In fact, I strongly encourage you to sort of, be cognizant of what Unilever brands would be open to doing and not be doing. But just outside of that causes-driven piece, it's important also to understand that the definition of what this generation considers as cool is constantly evolving, right? And it's markedly different than what would be, let's say, 10 or 20 years ago, right? And brands who are doing that are actually finding a little bit of success, right? So I'm just going to give you one example to show you how this is being done today.
Just feeling a little tired today. Actually, I washed all the dishes last night. I try to help my mom at times, you know.
Wow, beta, wow. Your bragging was just brilliant. Here is Vim Black for Men. Now wash all the dishes morning, noon, night and enjoy all the bragging. Vim Black for Men. Easy to clean, more to brag.
Awesome. And moving on to more trends that are going to shape this generation's choices. You have to keep in mind that it's not just about where people are shopping. It's also about where and how people are consuming content, right? So there's obviously not one medium which is dominant, right? There are lots and lots of places in which this generation is consuming content. The nature and format of that content is sort of different, and so therefore you want to keep that in mind and see how you can leverage that in a way that hasn't been done in the past, right? So that's something for you to keep in mind. And I'm going to end this section really by reiterating that this is not an exhaustive list. I've just put in a few trends for you to sort of think about what kind of trends can be useful, but you can virtually use any research that is relevant, that is ideally about Indian users, and use that to figure out fresh insights and fresh data points that you can use to help Unilever grow within this audience, right? Now, that being the context, let's now get into even more practical pieces of what your job is with this case, right? So let's start with the first thing that we've asked you in this case, which is to pick an HUL brand. So HUL has the great advantage of working in a company like Unilever is that there are lots of brands, right? And that same advantage is is also there when you're doing this challenge. There are a lot of brands. Of course, the disadvantage is there are too many brands. If there were only 5, then would have perhaps made your job easier, right? So you could ask me, okay, well, if there are 60 plus brands which are here, which one should I be picking in? My suggestion would be to pick in any brand that you have some access to in terms of consumer interactions, because the biggest thing that differentiates good entries from average entries is the sheer amount of consumer knowledge that underpins the work that the students have done. Sneha just spoke about it a few minutes ago about doing a lot of consumer work, and that is something which you will have to do yourself. So you will have to figure out a brand and a category, and out of that category, you will have to speak to at a bare minimum 10 or 15 people. And when I say talk, it's not going to be a 5-minute questionnaire, right? When I say conversation, it'll probably be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, in some cases much longer kind of conversation, where you are going deeper into what is really driving decision making for this person. What are their true motivations, the kinds of things that people won't sort of reveal when you ask them a basic question, but they will reveal maybe an hour after they have started speaking to you about it, right? So those conversations will have to be done, so it will help you to pick a brand that you have access to consumers of, right? So I think that will be an important decision parameter. And then obviously the second piece would be where you think that where you can really find an idea that can excite this generation, right? And can that actually can really leverage to build a useful proposition. So that's how you should you should decide on your brand. Once you have this brand, like I said, you'll have to speak to consumers. You can, of course, and you should use consumer reports as well, right? So when I say reports, I mean publicly available reports, what we call secondary research. There's no problem in using that, but you should use that to back up what you are seeing, right? So it's not a place where you can sort of depend upon that exclusively. You need to do the 10 to 15 consumers in-depth immersions, but the reports really help you sort of figure which of the whether the trends are bearing out what you're noticing in consumer discussions. And because it's relatively very easy to get consumer reports. In fact, those reports are public, right? So anybody can find them. So there's no challenge in finding those reports. The challenge is in actually talking to consumers properly in a way such that they tell you the things that you need to know, and that you don't accidentally mislead them into lying to you, right? People will tell you the truth as long as you know how to sort of ask the questions in the right way and really pay attention to what they are saying, right? So that is a skill that you have to learn. Now, some of you have already gone through marketing research courses, and I think that will really help. But for anybody who hasn't gone through marketing research courses, I just thought I want to put in some very important aspects for you to sort of know. Like I said, I promised that I'm going to save you time. I'm going to put the most important things for you to sort of spend time on, right? So one thing is you should have a discussion guide, okay? And what that means is that discussion guide tells you what kind of questions you should be asking your consumers. I have put the questions that you could be asking up here as examples. These are not, once again, exhaustive. They're just they're just indicative. You can take a screenshot of this if you want, and just keep this in mind that if you don't have a discussion guide, your consumer emotions are not going to be helpful, right? Because you don't know where to lead them in some ways, right? Of course, it's a conversation, it's not an interview, right? Or in fact, interview can also go everywhere, but let's say it's not a viva, right? You don't have to ask these questions only, right? It can go in different directions, but at the end of the day, what you have to make sure is the fact that you do have a list of questions, and that you can refer to those questions and make sure you get answers to almost all of these questions as you go along, right? The second thing, of course, is how do you really take this conversation forward, right? So one of the most frequent mistakes, in fact, I'll mention 3 mistakes here, but one of the most frequent mistakes is people ask leading questions. And what that does is that it, the interviewer, the questioner unwittingly, leads people into giving an answer that I mean, because we are human beings, right? Like we are all in some ways people pleasers. So when you ask a question, sometimes the other person can judge what answer you want to hear, and therefore they give you that answer, right? And that's why you see so much marketing chaos sometimes, which happens in, right, where people say, but how could you have not known this? Well, sometimes it's not easy to know this, because people aren't really sort of telling you the truth, in large part because they've figured out through the way you phrase the question in terms of what really matters to you, right? So therefore, it's good to not do leading questions. Let me give you a couple of examples here, or let me just give you one example. This question on the top, how problematic is the shortage of water in doing laundry? This is a problematic question, right? Because you've already seeded that there is that the shortage of water could be a problem, right? Who's going to say no to that, right? I mean, anybody who's even had a mild discomfort will say, yeah, it is a problem, right? But a better way to discover this is to actually sort of ask them a question like, what do you like or dislike about laundry? Whether you think shortage of water is a problem or not is something that the user has to voice it out, right? So if you ask them an open-ended question, well, what do you like or dislike about laundry? And they don't say anything about shortage of water in the top 3 or 4 issues that they list, then you know this is not a big issue for them, right? But if you ask this person the question, how problematic is the shortage of water in doing laundry, and they'll be saying, it is somewhat of an issue, right? Even though it may not be the biggest issue or the second biggest issue or the third biggest issue, right? And once they tell you that actually, one big issue is that, there is one of the most frustrating things about washing clothes is that when you're washing clothes and the water goes out, then you don't know what you can do, right? Then once they tell you that water shortage is an issue, then you can sort of ask them. If you've already decided in some way that you want to talk about water shortage, but the person has not said anything organically, you can still sort of ask them. If you see the second question, what do you think about the water shortage, right? So at the end, once you're clear that this person has listed 3 issues and water shortage is not one of those issues, you can still ask it to them at that point, knowing fully well that this was not the issue that was in their top 3 concerns, right? But just to be sure about really understanding if this is an issue at all, you can still do it at that moment of time, right? So the sequencing sort of really matters here. Don't just lead them into the problem that you want to talk about, right? The second big issue that people sort of do, and this is probably even a bigger issue because I don't think this is taught in B schools very well, right? Some B schools, yes, some B schools not so much. There is the way questions are phrased are so complicated, and that basically the consumer has to do a little bit of math or a little bit of word processing to understand exactly what you mean. And a lot of people will not ask you what do you mean by that, right? They'll just give the answer. You ask them a question, they'll give you an answer, right? And you might think that's a good thing. It can be a very bad thing in many cases, right? So to that extent, like you should avoid asking for questions like and this is the way that people do it, right? You see it a lot in those Google forms that are there, like what do you care for, value for money, quality of wash, or ease of washing, right? I mean, if those are the options on the table, who's going to sort of who's going to, I mean, people will just do what they think you want to listen in, or what they think is their identity, right? So so if I think, for example, I'm the kind of person who's very smart, I'm always looking for value for money, then I'm just going to give you the answer that value for money means a lot to me, because that's my self identity, that's my perception, right? But when you see my choice of brand that I'm using, you might realize it has nothing to do with value for money, right? So the actual behavior of somebody is completely different from the from what they're claiming to be the case, right? Which is why a better way to phrase that is to ask what they're doing today and deduce from that what they care about. So what that would look like is, all right, tell me about what laundry products you use, and then why do you use it, and most importantly, perhaps, when did you start using it and what made you switch to this, right? Because if they tell you that I switched to this because because my friend recommended to me that this is a very high quality product or something like that, then you know that quality is something which really sort of matters, or they saw that this product is not sort of doing well on their clothes or something like that, that made them switch. You know that the quality of the wash is really mattering, because that is the decision on which they switched. Whether they said that they care for value for money or they care for ease of washing or whatever, those are things that may not matter as much, right? So those are the kinds of things that you want to take care of. When I said no computation left to the respondent. And of course, a variation of that problem is the differential definitions of the words you use, right? So again, this was spoken about, right? You want to keep things simple, but that has many implications. One of those things is, when you're doing consumer work, try and keep, this is not the place to impress, try and keep the language as simple as possible and as little for the consumer to interpret, if you don't want them to interpret it in that fashion, right? So if you want to be truly understood, then ask them basic, ask them stuff in simple language, right? An example of that is, don't ask what's your cleanliness mantra. Instead, keep it very factual in terms of, okay, why don't you take me through the steps of what you do in a normal laundry wash, right? So that's something which will help in. Now, are there more research principles to keep in mind? Of course they are, but I promised you, I'm going to save you time. These are the most important principles. The rest of it, if you want to dive into it, there are tons and tons of resources that you can get into, which takes me to the next part of what differentiates great teams from good teams, right? If you want to be in this challenge, if you want to reach right to the next stage, and hopefully to the a grand finale after that, then you need to be amazing at not just talking to consumers, but having a framework that that translates that knowledge that you're gleaning into crafting your own marketing strategy, right? So the first framework I'm going to talk about is actually a subset of a larger framework, which is what we call in Kraftshala the super consumer framework. Because the focus here is on a very specific aspect of marketing, so we're going to focus on the core of this framework, which is the what and the whys. Okay, so what that means essentially is that when you're speaking to consumers and you're talking about the things that they are doing in a given category, right? So if it's laundry, it's about washing and so on and so forth, whatever category you choose, you want to really capture what are the behaviors that this consumer has towards the category. Now, what does that mean? First, which consumer, right? So the consumer that you should be speaking to are those kinds of consumers that you want to convince into coming into your brand portfolio, which means the consumers that perhaps are buying you today, but perhaps are not buying you today, but you really want them to buy, right? So those are the consumers that you want to be talking to, which means that they have to be category consumers, right? They have to be at least using the product. So if, for example, if somebody doesn't do laundry, don't ask them laundry questions, right? So you really want the ideal consumer that you want to drive in. You want to have this conversation with them. How to have this conversation, I've showed you. What you should capture in that first and foremost is their category behavior, which is what I call the what's. Okay, so you should capture at the bare minimum 5 behaviors, but it could be it could be more, 7, 8, 10, 12, whatever, right? Which is your category level behaviors of what is this person doing with respect to the category. At the second level, you have to ask the question, why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, and the whys is what will be most useful to you as we go forward, right? So to reiterate what I've just said, the what's capture everything related to their behavior towards the category. It gives you an indication of who this person is, but it keeps the image a little bit blurred, as you can see on the right. But when you ask the question why are you doing what you are doing, what is the reason that this action is being done in this way and not in any other way, that's what builds clarity over what is driving decision making for your consumers, and that's the kind of information that you would be able to use. I will take one example here for you to sort of understand this, right? So if you ask a consumer, let's say in Maharashtra, because that's where this campaign of RIN was sort of really activated in, and you ask them, what their category behaviors is, they one of the things that they will tell you is that sometimes stuff stains don't go despite multiple rounds of rinsing. This means a lot more water. I try not to use more water, but I can't help it. I feel a little bit guilty at times. Okay, that's what a typical consumer will tell you. Of course, this is not a verbatim. You'll have to translate it and you'll have to sort of compress a little bit, but as close to a consumer verbatim as you can. But the real magic happens when you ask them why. And the reason that they'll tell you is that the reason that they still go ahead and do their best, even though they're using so much water and they're feeling guilty about it, but still that they're doing it is because I can't leave stains in my family's clothes, as it reflects on us as a family. And some of the people will tell you, and on me as a provider, on me as the person who is an integral part of running the household, right? I need to get the stain out, but it requires too much water, right? So that is one reason why they go all out. Now, you could have asked the question also of why do they feel guilty, right? So why is it that water matters to them, and that will lead to a different kind of a why as well, right? So they'll tell you stuff, and your job will be to dig a little bit deeper to truly understand what they're meaning. And I'll show you a little bit about about how much impact this makes as we get into the consumer insight pieces. But just to reiterate, the whys that you get from this work that you do helps you craft both the communication challenge as well as the insight, right? So let's come to the communication challenge. The communication challenge is something you're supposed to literally write in your submission, right? So the what I'm telling you right now is exactly what you need to really be writing in. So the way you use that kind of information, let me give you an example, is to put it into what the current behavior of the consumer is and what is the mindset that drives that behavior, and from that, what is the desired mindset and behavior that you want to have, right? So let's take this example fully. So on the current behavior, on the current mindset, on the top left, let me see if I can get a laser pointer here. Okay. Yeah, so you can see that it says, I cannot get clean, bright clothes unless I use a lot of effort and water. This is my mindset. And because I know that, I have to personally put all the effort and, I have to anyway use the water. It doesn't matter what bar of, laundry soap I'm using. Whatever the cheapest is, I'm going to go with that because it's on my ability, my physical effort. So what is the point of spending more money on getting a so-called better bar? Because eventually it's all on me, right? Now you can ask, how did I reach from that to this? I haven't shown you the whole category understanding, right? I've only shown you one. If you keep asking the questions why, you'll be able to reach here. But what you have to do in the communication challenge is frame, okay, this is the current mindset of the user and this is the behavior that they have, which means if I launch a campaign, then I want a different kind of mindset of this consumer, and that should lead to a different kind of outcome, right? So what could that look like? If Rin were to decide, okay, like we have a bar and that is something that can really sort of help you save water, because you can wash this, you can get amazing cleanliness at just half the amount of water that you're using. Then your desired mindset that you want of your target consumer is that with Rin, I can get clean, bright clothes in just half the amount of water. And the behavior is that you want is Rin is value for money, even if it's a bit expensive, so I'll buy it, right? That's the behavior. You want the person to be buying Rin because they believe, their mindset is that with Rin you can get bright, clean clothes in just half the amount of water, right? So I hope it is clear that the current mindset and behavior is before you launch your campaign, and the desired mindset and behavior is the mindset and behavior you want after somebody sees your marketing campaign. What is it that you want them to believe, and what is the action you want them to take in, right? All of this is summarized in that one line that you see at the bottom. The one thing I want to convince my super consumer is that with Rin, I can get bright clothes in just half the amount of water. Now you can see that this is exactly what we've asked you in the line submission format as well. And by the way, I don't want you to think about solving for too many things, right? Communication challenge, the key thing to understand is it has to be singular. You cannot have multiple consumer challenges to be solved. One job has to be done. Okay, this is the job that you have to do, and that's when communication works best. Once it is singular in nature, right? What is the mindset and behavior change that you want to drive in your super consumer, right? Now, once you move out from this aspect, the next is the consumer insight, and in fact, consumer insight is I mean, there are many definitions for it, but it's hard to sort of explain it in a very quick way, but I'll do my best. I promised you that I'm going to save you a lot of effort. One of the places that people spend a lot of time is that they don't understand what a consumer insight is. They think it's the same thing as anything else, and so they go ahead and just sort of work on a weak insight, and that typically leads to a weak line presentation, right? So framing a powerful consumer insight is an important aspect, especially in round one. I would say this is probably the kind of thing that if you've done good consumer work, this will really come through. So a consumer insight is really about capturing the human truths that cause the tension. So two different human truths that cause tension, which you use. That tension is what you use to convince the consumer of whatever it is you want to convince them of, right? So communication challenge on one hand is, okay, what do I want my consumer to believe? But the solution is going to come from the campaign idea, right? And that campaign idea is, let's say, Surf Excel's Daag Achhe Hai, right? That being the campaign idea. That campaign idea entirely depends on the insight that you discover, right? So that insight is what really that a lot of a lot of emphasis has to be put on, and that is what we're going to be getting into. Now, the technical definition of insight is very simple. It's a deep understanding of the motivations, attitudes, and beliefs that impact behavior and non-behavior. Simple enough, boring enough. Anyway, it's based upon a human truth. I've just mentioned that to you a minute ago, that it's based upon a human truth, and actually not just one human truth. Typically, there are two different truths that are pulling at the seams here, and it typically includes an element of tension, right? Because the campaign idea resolves that tension. That's how most consumer insights work, right? So let's understand what's a human truth. A human truth is any truth which is true for a large section of the human population, right? So one of the human truths that might be very familiar to you, if you've seen Hindi movies, is those fail ho jaye to dukh hota hai, lekin those first aa jaye to zyada dukh hota hai, right? Which comes obviously from Three Idiots, right? A lot of movies, a lot of human truths which are there, right? So human truths are basically, things which are true for a large section of the human population, right? So something like, even music is not just a way to pass time for me. It's an expression of the self and the soul. It's a human truth that's true for a large number of people, right? So it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be true for everyone, of course, but it has to be true for a substantial portion of people. That's what a human truth is, right? Now, we know that insight has human truth. We know that it describes a fundamental motivation that makes people choose something. We know that it has an element of tension, right? Those are the three aspects. So the statement that I'm showing you right now, is that a human truth or is that not a human truth? Imagine this consumer who's buying furniture for her new home, and she says, no matter how many choices I see, I can't seem to find the furniture that makes my home feel more like home, right? Most people sort of consider the definition of an insight. They look at the statement and they say, well, I can see some tension here. Maybe this is a consumer insight as well, right? And the question then that I ask them is, explain to me exactly what the issue is that this consumer is facing, right? And when you ask this question, people actually don't have a common answer, because people interpret this statement in different ways. Some people say, actually, you know what, she has this very defined idea in her mind of what she wants. Maybe that is the kind of furniture and design that she saw in her childhood or someplace, and she's looking for that very specific thing, but she's not able to find it, right? So therefore, we should, that's the challenge here, that she has a very defined idea but she can't find it. Other people go ahead and say the complete opposite thing, right? Which is that, actually, you know what, she has no idea about what she wants, and so therefore every choice seems like a bad choice, because she doesn't have a defined idea what she has in her mind. A third person says, actually, it's not about the fact that, that this is a design choice. This is the kind of person who's just not able to be decisive at all in life, right? She's just indecisive in general. So therefore, that is why, like, she can't make up her mind, right? And this keeps going, by the way. Like, I can give you another 3 interpretations of this statement. And the thing that you have to understand is, if there are 3 interpretations possible of this, then how is this an insight? Because you can't agree on what the problem is of the consumer, right? And like I told you, campaign idea is the solution, but the insight is the problem, right? It's the definition of what you're trying to solve in the consumer's mind. So therefore, to discover an insight, you can't have such interpretations, right? You still have to ask the question, that amazingly important question of why. Why are you saying what you're saying, right? And when you ask the question why to a consumer like this, she might tell you that, I believe a home is more than just bricks and beams. It sets the scene for the most meaningful parts of life: love, laughter, and the warmth of relationships. Home is where my story begins, and I want this story to be unique and special in my own way. I've spent so much time building my perfect dream home that I can't afford to getting it wrong, right? And that tells you that this is a consumer who is clearly sort of, this home means a lot to her. She's probably visualized a lot of things about how her home is going to look, and how, she's going to spend time with her family and grow up in this particular place. But she's just very, very afraid of getting it wrong. She's very, she's very cautious about whether she can actually visualize the right thing, and the fact that the decision is so high stakes for her that she's, in absence of that visualization, that she's really struggling to make a call, right? Now, the difference, in fact, let me then phrase the insight. I want to show this insight to you. How does a typical insight look? I want the interiors of my home to reflect my unique personality. That's one truth. But my inability to imagine how the furniture will look in my space makes me indecisive and scared of getting it all wrong, right? One truth, want the interiors to reflect my personality, but uniqueness can get me into trouble because I'm struggling to imagine how exactly this will look. And that tension is what is making me indecisive and scared of getting it all wrong. And the way that this makes an impact is that if you had gone with that first statement, no matter how many choices I see, I can't seem to find the furniture that makes my home feel more like home, then you could have come up with a product, as an organizer app that helps you review furniture choices easily. And then your campaign idea would have been the ultimate catalog that opens a window to your dream home, right? But if you had asked the question, why are you saying what you're saying? And you would have discovered the actual insight, which is that I want the interiors of my home to reflect my unique personality, but my inability to imagine how the furniture will look in my space makes me indecisive and scared of getting it all wrong. That leads to probably a product like an augmented reality app that helps you visualize the furniture in your house for creating that ideal space. And therefore, the campaign idea from that would have been bridge the imagination gap. Now, only one of these submissions would have worked, right? Both look smart from the outside, and that's the challenge that I started with. That you have to be some kind of an expert in that category, right? If you're not an expert, that even the first even the first thing will sound like a fairly reasonable and it's a kind of idea that could work, right? But it's when you talk to consumers and really discover what's driving their motivations that you actually come up with a campaign idea that can truly move the needle, right? And so that's the difference between a team which is winning and a team which thought they had done a good job, but actually they are not close to sort of progressing, right? And going back to our RIN example, what are the human truths that cause the tension? If I had to express the insight, on one level, clean, bright clothes are indispensable as they are a reflection of the dreams and aspirations of my family. On the other side, it takes a lot of water to really get them clean and bright. I know that water is scarce, and sometimes I feel guilty in using a lot of it, but it is what it is, right? So that tension that is there is what the brand has to really solve for. Right. Now, I think I've already sort of framed the insight. So we're going to move forward from here. Once I have the insight, that's when I sort of come up with the campaign idea, right? So all of you have to come up with the static, right? And that static should capture the essence of the offering. So it should have a campaign idea. It should resolve the insight, which means that that insight that you have framed has to be resolved through it. And I'll show you how RIN does it in just a second, right? But on RIN, I'm going to show you the video because that gives a more, sort of a more deeper view of how that insight has been resolved. It obviously has to differentiate you from competition, right? If it's the same thing that what your competitor is doing, then it's not going to really land with your consumers. And obviously it has to be memorable, right? And that's where the art part of it comes in, right? So let's look at, in fact, let me finish the bringing the idea live, and then I'll take you to RIN to close this discussion, this section of our discussion off. Once you have a campaign idea, which once you have a static, we've also asked you to bring this idea live in different ways, right? So now in this round, you only have to tell us a little bit about what mediums you're going to choose, why have you chosen those mediums, and why will this idea land really well, and what are some of the other amplifications, other partnerships that you can do that will break clutter and give extra reach to the idea, right? So to give you examples of how this is done, let's first look at how RIN resolved this insight, which is the idea that they had and then how they amplified it, just to give you one great example of how marketing can take one idea and really sort of make it larger than what it might have looked initially.
माँ, टंकी खाली है। इतने चमकदार कपड़े, सारा पानी इसी ने खर्च किया होगा। चल चिंटू, बेशरम कहीं की।
आंटी, पानी बचाने में शर्म किस बात की? ये लीजिए। कैसे? स्मार्ट झाग वाला नया रिन बार, ये सही मात्रा में झाग बनाए और दे जबरदस्त चमक। अब आधे पानी में और चिकनाई बिल्कुल गायब। नया रिन बार, चमकते रहना।
Awesome. So you've seen the campaign. Now let's talk about how this has been amplified further. So the team at RIN, and this all was done, by the way. These are not ideas; these are executions. They created a number where people could pledge. Send a call here, missed call here, and pledge about how they wanted to, how they wanted to contribute in saving water. They didn't just sort of depend upon TV. So obviously TV is there, but they use different media channels which their audience watches. By the way, not that much Gen Z. Of course, this campaign is also a few years ago, so that is there. But in fact, to some extent, not very different from the Gen Z as well. So maybe we'll discuss that as we go forward. Then of course, the kind of creatives that they came up with, very hard hitting, right? So front half page ad on Maharashtra Day, as you can see, the image is visually visually disruptive. Once again, the team that you were speaking, that you guys were listening to, they spoke about how visuals matter a fair bit. So that was also important. Then of course, advertorials on water that ran not just for 1 or 2 days, but for almost a month and a half. Then some interesting pieces, like for example, asking, having these creatives that showed how dhobis are asking people to sort of save water as well, because they themselves were saving almost 500 liters of water in a single day, right? So obviously, something that you won't sort of see on a day-to-day basis. And then, like taking it all across, right? So celebs taking the pledge. And in fact, when you sort of partner with a property, this is Big Boss, I think the Marathi version, where they had interesting tasks which were linked to saving water, right? Just to sort of reinforce that idea of how saving water is important. Then of course, there were ways in which consumers could report incidents of water wastage in and around Maharashtra, right? So setting that piece up, and so on and so forth, right? So this is just one campaign and lots of different sort of builds on top of that campaign. And the ask from us will be that when you figure out a campaign idea, you'll obviously show us a static, which is great, but make sure that you also think about how you're going to amplify that idea and share that with us so that we can also evaluate it. And if you reach the second stage of this amazing L.I.M.E season 16, then you'll get a chance to build further the ideas that you've recommended. Thank you very much for listening in patiently, and we'll now move to the next section where we can take in some of your questions as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Varun, for taking us through that elaborate presentation, but I think very key, pointers on how to ace this season of L.I.M.E 16. And I'm sure, everyone on the call has got some cues on where to get started. But of course, like we promised earlier, we are going to be there every step of the way. So if there is any other questions that you have, please feel free to post it where we've on the Q&A tab, and I'm going to take some of them that have already come through. So I'm going to request actually Aditya Kashyap, our head for fabric cleaning, to also join me and Varun on the dais so that we can take some of the questions that have already come in. Varun, I think lots of questions actually, Varun, on the submission template, which is to say, there are 3 slides, but the first one is going to be an opening slide. So I think if you can just shed some light on how the template looks. And of course, guys, we're going to upload the template for you on the Unstop website as well. So right after this call, you'll get the PDF to the case as well as the template. But any guidelines on the submission, Varun, that you can share?
Let me just state this as clearly as possible. Human beings are going to look at your submission, not AI. So don't get lost into the nitty-gritties of the rules. The submission format is fairly simple. There are broadly 2 slides. The third slide is, the first slide might just be, like a title one, but they're broadly 2 slides and that you have to do. And the first slide largely talks about choosing your HUL brand, telling us what kind of consumer trends you're tapping into, telling us a little bit about what your sources are for the identification of that trend, and telling us a little bit about the consumer deep dive that you've done. And of course, we don't ask you for the deep dive in a general sense. What we ask you is the compressed version of that, which is what is the communication challenge, which is what I showed you, right? And what is the insight which is there, right? So that's one aspect of it. And then the second aspect of that is coming up with a static creative, which is your campaign idea. So share an image which basically captures what is the campaign idea that you have come up with for this HUL brand based on the consumer work that you've done. And how you would amplify this campaign idea in different ways. That would be the final thing that you have to answer, right? So it's basically, expanding. The first part is on expanding on how you've discovered, what problem you've discovered, which is where, the communication challenge and insight come till that part comes in. And then the second part is what the static creative is, what the campaign idea is, and how you're going to bring it alive through media choices, through other partnerships, and means of amplifying that idea. That's what the submission format is about. We've captured how many words we'd want to see in each space as well, so that you can keep that in mind as well. And of course, like it will always seem that no matter how many pages we give you, it will always seem too less. But you'll get a rich chance to sort of elaborate on your ideas in the subsequent stages.
Okay. I think one more question, Varun, coming your way again around the submission, which says that you touched upon how we could be giving a static idea campaign for round 1, but which also followed by how it would be good to give HUL the vision some other way. Can you double click on that and give more clarity? So are we only looking for a static image, or is there more that's expected?
Yes, so the static image is necessary. So that will tell us how you're visualizing your idea to come alive. And once you have that static image done, then it's really about figuring out how else would you amplify this idea, right? So we do want to see a little bit of creativity here in terms of what are the choices you're making, and we'd love to see you describe a little bit about how you are going to sort of amplify it in specific ways, right? So to give you an example, if I were to take that RIN example that we just saw, you could just simply say that okay, I'm going to partner with Big Boss Marathi and leave it at that. But what we would love to see the kind of detailing is, because your campaign ideas is that that RIN actually helps you save, helps you get great cleaning at half the water. What we're going to do is we're going to create a very specific task in the Big Boss piece, which will be about saving water, and just a quick description of that. So that level of detailing, I think, will really help us understand what your idea is about, and it will help us assess your idea better as well. But to be clear, we want the static for sure, and we want other ideas that amplify that for sure, right? So both of these things are needed.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the next question, whether the deck will be available to you or the recording of this event will be available to you. We'll make sure that that gets circulated through the Unstop platform. I think another question that I would like to give Varun is Ria from Bokoni is asking, is Daag Achhe Hai an example of good static creativity? Would you have any comments on that?
So Dagache is an amazingly good campaign at no matter which way that you sort of look at it. I think that the way you should evaluate your creative is on the four aspects that I sort of mentioned, right? Which is uh, uh, is this static creative resolving the insight that has been identified? See, the worst way, I mean, in B schools, we learn some amazing things and we learn some very stupid things. And one of the most stupid things that we learn is how to split work. Because what happens is that, we in B schools, we have these tight timelines and, multiple things to do. So right now in this HUL submission, there are, let's say, two slides to finish in, right? So if there is a team of 4 people, my worst fear is 2 people are working on inside and 2 people are working on the solution, right? And by the way, this is only a slight exaggeration. I have no doubt that somewhere in the thousands of people who are applying, some of this is going to happen. This will not work. So your big idea, your campaign idea, right, which is representing through the static, has to resolve the insight. Resolve means if this is the tension, then the static is the solution to that consumer's tension, right? So in that context, in the context of Surf Excel, of course, that tension is it's a great insight first of all, and then it obviously the visualization, the choice of the text and the creative, of course, they work really well. The second piece is, the second, third, and fourth pieces around the fact that, is it distinctive, which means that is it something that other players have not done? I think that's pretty important. And that is again a check mark there. And third piece, is it memorable? So is there something in that creative that is arresting, that forces you to sort of hold attention for a second, right? Remember that we've even said it has to be an Instagram creative, right? So the reality of Instagram is that there are billions and billions of pieces of content. People are sort of running through a lot of content there, and you're not just competing with other brands, you're competing with all different kinds of content creators. And in that context, your ad has to sort of really stand out. So therefore, the visualization matters, and so in that context, that's something again that you'll have to think about before you put it in the submission.
Thanks, Varun. I think that was a good example. And I think I'm going to go back to Addy on the same question, which is basically how does HUL evaluate innovative and sustainable solutions proposed by participants? What are some of the key factors that HUL prioritizes when assessing the feasibility and impact of these solutions in a real world business environment?
I really hope I'm going to be third time lucky.
Yes.
With the Wi-Fi this time around. I hope it's much better. There are very simply just two options. One is, are you really saving the environment and making things sustainable? And two, are consumers going to value it? Those are the two simple things on which sustainability initiatives and innovations are based on. Consumers need to know it and care about it, and you should make a true difference, not do something just with lip service, Nikita.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm going to continue with one more question with you, Addy, which was, it was mentioned that reaching largest addressable market is the goal, whereas premiumization is a new trend to get bigger margins. There's a trade-off between premium and massy products. Which one should we focus on?
Both are really viable business options. Do something that comes genuinely to you from the heart and really makes business sense to you. I don't think there's a right or wrong in this. But a larger addressable market always makes better business sense because it ensures that the business is sustainable over a slightly longer period of time.
Yeah, I think that's the clear ask. Just wanted to also again address one more question, which is open-ended questions run the risk of being too vague. And I think, Varun, you want to take this one because this is about really getting that consumer insight. Like, for example, how do you interact with media? It could be a question when you're asking a consumer to sort of talk about their media preferences. What is the ideal trade-off point between being open-ended but also guiding the consumer towards the insight you want to derive? Is there a good example that you can share here?
Yeah, I think you're not going to reach the insight level when you're talking to people very easily. You'll have to process it in your own mind a little bit as well. But net, I think your motivation should be to try and get people to tell you the truth as much as possible, right? So take for example the question, what are your hobbies, right? Or what kind of shows do you watch? If you ask these kinds of questions, then people tend to, I mean, these are open-ended questions, like you said. They could reveal interesting answers, but the thing is, people are also trying to project a certain image of themselves. So once you ask this question of what are your hobbies, they're going to say, I like to I like to sculpt in the free time that I have, or some fancy hobby that is there. And then you think that actually a lot more people are interested in sculpture than you thought originally. But if you ask them, okay, like, what were you doing last weekend when you were not working? And they say, well, I was cleaning my room or spending time with my friends and stuff like that. That tells you a little bit more about that tells you a little bit more about who they are. So the first thing that you have to keep this in mind is that instead of asking people any kind of open-ended questions, the piece should be on what is likely to generate an honest answer. So that's the first piece, right? The second piece is that the less you have to seed somebody, the less ideas you seed in somebody's mind, the better it is. So that's where I think open-ended questions really help, and that's the example that I chose as well. In my deck, that don't ask them whether they care for, whether they care for ease of wash and value for money and quality, because these things again go into somebody trying to project a certain image of themselves. You want to start with what really sort of drove your last brand choice, right? What brand did you start with? When did you shift? Why did you shift? Those kinds of factual questions again will take you to the truth a lot more. And I think that the last piece to consider in here is the time that you have with the consumer. It's a practical reality that you're not going to get as much time as you want with somebody. And so what you will realize is that sometimes you will just not get to the question at hand, which is that you need to really figure out category behavior from someone. And if they're not talking about category behavior and you're just using the time to figure out how people are in general, as if it's as if it's a study about human beings in general, then of course that will not be a useful exercise as well. So I think it will help you to look at, if you've taken a screenshot of my slide there, in terms of what kind of category questions are useful, then you know that these are the kind of answers I need to get at the end of that conversation. And if the conversation is not sort of moving in that direction, then you will have to sort of move it a little bit there. But beyond that, you have to be sort of very cautious about seeding ideas in somebody's mind, and you have to be cautious about the fact that everybody will try and project a certain image. So try not to sort of ask these questions that that will get people to just present a very sophisticated, fancy version of themselves, whatever they think, right? It's important to ask them what they were actually doing, and to the extent that they can remember, right? So if you want to know what people have for breakfast, don't ask them what they normally have for breakfast. Ask them what they had yesterday, and ask them what they had day before, and that will over a certain sample set will give you much better answers.
Thanks, Varun. I think anybody who's going away from this call will also know how to gather great consumer insights in any interaction that they have. I'm going to go to the next question to Addy, which is more about picking the right brand within the HUL framework. So we saw a bunch of questions which said, can we actually pick any brand under the HUL umbrella? Which the answer is yes, of course. But can we propose a new product line under our chosen HUL brand? So, for example, if we choose Surf Excel, can we consider soaps, powder, liquid, or do we have to pick only one? Or can we also sort of propose a completely new product line? If you can answer both these questions, Addy.
Yeah, so the case is not an innovation case. So I would like all of us to stick to existing brand and product lines. And I think that self answers the next question. So Surf has a bar, powder, and a liquid. Just pick one of it, and that's fine. But pick one that's existing to see how you can, answer the case. It's not an innovation case, so there's no need for us to create a new product line.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to take last two questions. Number one is it important to choose a brand that is not performing well at this point? So, Addy, do you want to take that one?
Not at all. And just FYI to everyone on the call, all brands of HUL are performing really well. So I think that's an oxymoron. But pick anything.
Right. So I think just going back to the problem statement, the idea is not for you to sort of save brands that aren't, like Addy said, all of them are doing really well, but to address it to a new set of audience, which is now emerging, which is the Gen Z. And we felt that having innovative ideas there will help us propel the brands even further. So that's really the mission here. And I'm going to wrap up with one last question, which again roots back to the template, Varun. I think everyone's really obsessed with saying, do we have to stick to the template hardcore, or do we have any flexibility to be more creative with that or tweak it in any way? I think I know the answer, which is, the consistency sort of helps us judge better, but any last thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that the problem with the deviation is that deviation can mean anything, right? And I have promised you that human beings will look at that submission template, right? So it's not, it doesn't matter, if you are sort of worried about the nitty-gritties. But at the end of the day, we have to assess all entries fairly, which means that, if there are thousands of entries which are coming in, then there are thousands of people sort of following the rules in those ways. So that's one. Second, you'd remember that we've designed a lot of these submissions in the past, and it helps to sort of follow the system that is laid out there, because it actually prevents you from wasting time on something that's not important to us. Somebody asked Addy about the innovation piece, right? If this was an innovation case, we would have asked you for more details of certain kinds. We haven't asked those details in large part because it's not relevant there. So the submission format is largely meant to help you save time on focusing on what is truly important, and to set a quality benchmark on, like with what brevity you should be able to create impact. Because if you don't sort of mention a certain number of words or whatever, then sometimes people don't realize that you can't write 2 pages in a consumer insight. So to that extent, I would look at the submission format as an aid from our end to guide you towards the right solution. And if any of those pieces are not making sense, then to reflect upon it and think about why it is set up in that fashion, rather than just assuming that that this is an arbitrary rule that doesn't have logic, right? We spend a lot of time trying to get this piece right, and every decision that we have taken in has come with a consideration, right? So therefore, I would strongly suggest that you stick to the format, in short. And I think that would be the best way for you to move forward.
Okay, with that, I think one last one that kept pressing, someone urging us to please ask this question, which is that do we need to write the entire script for the campaign? Addy, if you have any thoughts, and basically just wrapping up the segment with the clear ask that we have, which is not really writing a campaign script, but anything else that you want to just wrap with.
Oh, please don't write a script. There are multiple ad agencies that help us do this time in and time out, and that's not what the case is about. I think Varun clearly mentioned, if you can put your idea on a simple static image, that speaks far more to us than a script will. So I think that's good for now. Always remember that the clearest and the best ideas come through when it's just said in the most simplest way. So think of it as an elevator pitch, think of it as a simple sentence, think of it as a 4-word. Daag ache hain is possibly the best articulation, like Varun said, that you could have of stains and of dirt. So always think how you can say it in the most concise way, and therein lies the win. All the best, guys, and thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for joining in. Last few instructions. You have time until the 18th of August to register for L.I.M.E. 19th of August is your submission date. We will not be extending that. All the information that you need for submitting your entries will be available on Unstop right after this call. So the submission template, the approach note, which you saw Varun take you through today, as well as the case PDF, everything will be available on Unstop. And of course, there is a team available to reach out to in case you need any further support. We do look forward to fantastic entries coming in, and I can see the curiosity peaking now. So really, really looking forward to the rest of the season. See you soon, and many of you who will make it to the semi-finale and the finale will see you in person. Thank you so much, Addy and Varun, for joining in today. And that's a wrap to the L.I.M.E. Season 16 launch. Bye.